Hey everybody, new stuff happening with the hammer. I'd like to do a better job this winter with some of these projects that I plan, and I thought I'd start with maybe talking about some of the stuff on the car that I need to go through or just didn't work. One of the things I think I need to do is this engine's probably going to have to come out. So when I get the engine back in, make adjustments to the whole driveline. So I don't think, I do get some driveline vibration at a couple weird spots. And though all the measurements were taken when I fabbed up all the mounts and locations, I really didn't go through and do a lot of the fine tuning with the driveline. So I need to do that this year. The intake manifold, I think if there's anything holding this engine back, it's the intake for the engine's current setup, and I am looking to replace it. So, the reality was this intake was just made so that it would fit under the hood. That was the whole purpose of it. There is no real aftermarket manifold that's going to fit under the hood. So the reality is, whatever manifold I pick to choose, which I'm looking to do adapters as opposed to fabbing up a whole new intake. So I'd rather use a good performing intake and then make adapters to fit the engine. So that's what I probably should have done in the first place. But again, I wanted to make an intake that fit under the hood. So there's going to have to be a hole in that hood somehow. So I don't know how I'm going to do that and what look I want to go with to do that. It's not desirable to me, but at the same time, all I'm looking to do with this engine is to get it to really run really nice. The engine made really good power. I would say great low and mid-range power, but again, this intake manifold is just, there is no runners really. There's a couple baffles in there to separate the different cylinders, but for the most part, it's just a plate with a box on it. And at 5,000, 6,000 RPM, it just doesn't really want to work. I think that's what the issue is. But even so, I've got some really nice cams coming this year. So these cams I think are great. I'd like to know what they do in a standard 500 engine, but I'm getting the cams, the billet cams ground to the specs I want to run this type of engine setup with the carb and everything. So new cams are coming, and I know I'm going to have to clearance some areas in the cylinder heads. So I think it's going to be easier for me to just go ahead and pull the engine out as little as is connected to it, to just go ahead and pull the engine out and do all the stuff I need to do on the engine stand, and then some improvements too. So I'm going to have probably the valve covers powder coated and some other stuff done. So, but the transmission's been great. No issues with the transmission. Great experience with the controller. I did have a display issue, and I contacted the seller, OF Gear, and he sent me out another display, right away. So, very pleased with that. Really, I think I might go ahead and just get another one, just to have for any future projects. But so transmission's been good. The torque converter I don't think worked the way I wanted it to. It was a CLK 320 torque converter. I was hoping the smaller engine powered torque converter might have a little more slip with a little higher stall speed, but I don't think it does. I think it stalls really, really low. So it connects really low. There's not much slip there. So the only other torque converters I have some 7229 torque converters, which I know will work just fine in the 7226. And then I have a W221 S600 twin turbo torque converter, which I thought would be the opposite, but I might just throw that in there just to see how it does. So same bolt pattern as the different, the earlier flex plate, so it'll fit right in there. So I might try that. So I'm going to do a different torque converter, cams, Heads, there's going to be a little bit more involved work with the heads. I'm not going to be doing some crazy port or anything, but there's definitely some areas. If I have to pull the valves out and everything, because I might have to do springs, so I got to upgrade springs with these cams, and then open these heads up a little bit. So since everything's going to be apart, I might as well clean up those areas I think need to be cleaned up in the heads. But other than that, the heads will just be just clearance for those cams. And then these valve springs are actually the 3-valve Ford valve springs that are dimensionally look like they're going to be perfect, and they're going to fit these smaller conical shaped valve retainers, the top retainers. So everything looks like it's going to be really easy with the valve springs. We'll see how that goes. I might have to reduce the clearance on the retainers though. But I'm going to wait till those cams come in and then do all my measurements on the bench. I will tell you, this engine is very similar in a lot of ways to the 3-valve Ford V8. And one of the things, like with this intake manifold, is engines are staggered, so there's always going to be a bank of cylinders that are forward or aft of each other. And most of the GM stuff is going to be opposite of Benz, and it's going to be that this bank of cylinders is going to be different. But Ford seems to do most of their engines like ours, with the passenger side the most forward. And, you have to pay attention to that, obviously, with the runners to do adapters. So really, I was limited to Ford intake manifolds. This is a 351 Windsor intake. Don't think I'll be running that. I'm going to wait and do a video on the intake that I think I'm going to be running. This was a Funnel Web 302, which is just more narrow. I wanted to have one to see what was going to work best, but the wider 351 Windsor intake looks like it's probably going to fit this engine best. But I take that back, because the intake I have coming is a 351 Cleveland intake manifold. So I think that one is truly going to work best. So again, I'll probably do a video on that once I get the adapters made, but I'm all set to get these parts in and then start working on getting the adapters made to get them to fit, and probably still be running the 650 double pumper. And then the other issue, I had a lot of issues running well, I shouldn't say a lot of issues. The only issue was when I would run the Wayspark Speeduino setup, with the cams having a bit more duration in the overlap. A lot of times when you would be cranking the engine over hot, the intake, it would backfire through the intake, and I ended up having to get a blow-off plate under this carburetor because it was destroying this intake manifold. So Wayspark, I won't go too much into it, but there was just limitations with only being able to control 4 cylinders, that you can run a V8, but you got to run what's called Wayspark. And ended up being, and there's no way I was going to try to run the Wayspark with these new cams that I have coming, because there's a substantial amount of overlap. This will be, I'll tell you, these cams will be 244 at 50 thousandths duration, right just under 500 lift, and on a 106 LSA. So that's going to be a nasty cam, and it's going to work great with this carburetor and this new intake manifold I got coming. And then if all this top end stuff really works out, then down the road, maybe next year, I'll look into doing the bottom end, do like a 55 maybe bottom end with some aftermarket, a little bit higher compression pistons or something like that. But I think that's about it. Everything else has been really good. There's some some steering shaft adjustments, I think, changes I might do with the engine out, but a lot of the stuff has been just fine. All of the rest of the drivetrain, drive shafts and axles, and I drove this car quite a bit over the last year and a half. Got caught out in the rain more than once, so it's just going to happen if you're going to drive them, which I really don't drive my cars very much. But this one's been super, super reliable. you know, super reliable. I felt no issue just getting in it and going. So we'll see how this goes. I'm excited for this build. I think this is going to end up being what I kind of really envisioned out of the gate, was to build this type of engine that I'm getting ready to get assembled. But yeah, really looking forward to getting on it. It's actually getting when I make the look at the list of everything I have planned with the drivetrain, it might be a little overwhelming for a winter project with other stuff going on. But that thing's still here. Hopefully it's going to be gone here real soon. And then an old Rentec 129, really nice, low mileage, 280 SL, nice clean old 129. And then this is a really nice low mileage 300 SEL. It's a nice car too. So I keep busy, so it's hard to fit some of this other stuff in, but we'll get it done. Thank you.